I was able to create this patch, which I think is super cute. Hi and welcome back to my channel Modern Modiste. In today's video we're going to be making a NASCAR inspired jacket similar to these jackets, which you may have been seeing on your Pinterest and Instagram recently. Maybe not, but I know I've been seeing a lot of these NASCAR inspired jackets. I really like the look of these jackets. I think they're so super cute. Some of these jackets are more like moto style, like the type you'd wear on a motorcycle, and that's the kind of look I'm going for. And for this project I do not want to buy any fabric. So I went in my stash and I found this red fabric, this blue fabric, and this white fabric. That white fabric is the denim from my overalls video. So I'm going to be tracing my jean jacket to create my pattern because this jean jacket has the fit and the shape I want my jacket to have. So I traced the front of my jacket using a sewing pin to poke holes into my paper at the shoulder seam and a neckline. And then I traced around the shoulder and the side of the jacket and traced all my lines in marker. I added 1/2 inch seam allowance and cut this out. Then with my jacket folded in half, I traced the back of my jacket the same exact way, tracing around the edges and using the sewing pin to poke holes at the curved seams. I added my seam allowance and cut that out as well. Then I used the same exact technique to trace the sleeve, tracing around the edges and poking holes at the curved seam. Then I flipped the sleeve over and traced the other half as well. Make sure these side lines are of the same length. Add your seam allowance and cut it out. Now that I've traced out my front, my back, and my sleeve, I went and traced those again onto my paper to create doubles, because on these doubles we are going to figure out our color block. I couldn't decide how I wanted to use my 3 colors, so I went back to Pinterest for some inspiration to try to figure out how I was going to color block my jacket. There's so many options. What to do? This is the design I decided to go with, so I went and drew this out on my pattern, making sure the back and front were symmetrical. While drawing this out, I drew 2 lines I changed my mind about, and that's why there are little X's on those lines, so those lines just don't count. I wrote in a reminder for myself to add seam allowance and cut on these lines and cut the pieces out of the corresponding fabrics. So I have all my colors cut out, my white, my blue, and my red. And I also went and cut out 4 pockets. These are going to be my inseam pockets. Added interfacing to my red and blue fabric since those are lighter weight than my white denim fabric, but I didn't add any interfacing to the sleeve pieces. Once all my front pieces are ready, I'm going to sew my inseam pockets. I'm going to sew these pocket pieces like so, making sure they are placed the same measurement from the top edge. Then I'm going to open this up and top stitch. I place these 2 together and sew the 2 together down and around the pocket and down to the bottom edge. And now I have my inseam pocket. Now I'm just going to top stitch above and below my pocket opening. And then I'm going to sew my yoke to this piece, right sides facing. I'm going to open up the seam and top stitch on either side of the seam. So here is 1/2 of my front. I went and added a little piece of very thin bias tape, which I don't know if I'm going to keep there yet. I think I might. It's looking really cute, but I bought this really thin bias tape. I did decide to sew in the bias tape after all, and I went and assembled the sleeve. And then I assembled the back. Yesterday, after I made my two fronts, my back, and my sleeves, I just was trying to figure out the placement of my patches, and the little patches I bought from the store were not doing it for me. Like, they were cute to add in little places, but they just were not satisfying me as the main center patches. So I decided to give it a shot and try to create my own patches, and this is what I was able to create. So the end patch I bought, I wanted it to go there, but I just thought it wasn't big and bold enough for the center like most of these jackets have. So I went and I backed it with black fleece. I went and backed it with black fleece. I went and backed it with black fleece, and then I backed that black fleece. Why is this so hard for me to say? And it's actually felt, not fleece. I don't know why I keep saying that. I sewed my end patch to both felt pieces, and then I sewed the black felt piece to the white one along the edge. I should have actually used black thread for that, because even though I zigzag stitched over this thread later, the white thread was still peeking through, and it was just so annoying to seam rip. And then I went and attached the entire patch to my jacket using this zigzag stitch. I also used the same zigzag stitch to sew around the black as well. And then I just made myself a little giant's patch out of fleece as well. And I'm not gonna lie, that was tricky because I went and I zigzag stitched around the N and around the Y. It's very small, so it's hard for me to do with my machine. You can always use embroidery thread and you can hand stitch around that, but I wanted it to be a quick process, so I used my machine on these settings, and yeah, I was able to create this patch, which I think is super cute. And I decided to use my cute little patches for my sleeves, so I put a 22 right there at the top, and I added my cute little patches, and then I put my M&M. Now these are iron-on patches that I'm sewing on. The adhesive was caking up on my needle, so it's not advised to sew through iron-on patches, but I just felt like I needed that extra supportive stitching. So if you want to sew through your iron-on patches, do it at your own risk. Okay, I'm okay with it. Maybe you shouldn't, maybe you should. You do what you think is best for you. And I went to the store this morning. I got some super thin white bias tape, just like that super thin blue bias tape I bought. And I think I'm going to go and sew a strip of it right above the blue line. And I'm going to do that on both sleeves, the fronts and the back. Now I did all that and I did not do my back patch yet. For the back patch, I went and traced this 20 onto my felt and cut that out. I cut out 2 sets of 20 initially to say 2020, which is the year I published my first YouTube video, but ultimately I decided to just go with 20. I sewed the 2 and the 0 with the zigzag stitch the same way I did the felt around the end patches, and then I sewed on my letter patches. Then I sewed on the white bias tape, and I assembled my jackets by sewing the front to the back at the shoulders. Then I pinned my sleeves to the armhole and sewed that onto my jacket. And last, I closed the sides of my jacket. This jacket looked like it's fresh off the racetrack. It's looking so legit. I love the color scheme going on. I felt like I was settling because I didn't want to go buy new fabrics. I wanted to use from my stash, but clearly it was meant to be. I was gonna go and do a white collar because I think that would look super cute with the jacket, but I'm just scared that that white collar is going to be looking super dusty within like a month or two. I'm gonna go with the blue instead, and hopefully that is just as cute as I know the white would be. So I measured my neckline, and then I cut a rectangle half the length of that measurement plus seam allowance by 1.5 inches. I curved this edge and then cut 3 slips and overlapped each one to create this curved piece. When I sewed this to my jacket, I ended up with this super wide collar, which I did not like. So I went back to my piece and I overlapped the cut edges a little bit more to create a sharper curve like this. I also went and added some length to this piece because I wanted my collar to be a little bit taller. I cut 2 of these and added interfacing to each side. Then I sewed the 2 together along the curved edge. I clipped into the seam allowance, pinned the collar to my jacket, and sewed it on. So I just pinned on a strip of the thin white bias tape to the bottom of the collar. It just brings everything together. So I'm going to go and sew that in place. Probably not yet because I don't want to switch to my white thread yet. But how cute. I went and sewed my zipper onto my jacket. And then I did a little try on just to make sure everything was lined up. Then I went to bed because I was so tired. So the next morning I went and sewed my lining together. I made my lining to be 1.5 inches shorter than my outer jacket and the sleeves to be 1 inch shorter than the outer jacket sleeves. I pinned my lining to my jacket right sides facing along the neckline and the bottom edge and sewed the 2 together. Then I sewed the end of my jacket sleeve to the end of my lining sleeve like this. I turned the jacket back inside out and pinned the lining to the jacket along the zipper. I'm going to sew the other side completely closed but leave an opening on this side so that I can pull the jacket right side out. After sewing that, I clipped into the curved edge and clipped the excess fabric from the corners and turned my jacket right side out. I need to close the opening I left. I'm going to fold it under, pin it in place, and I'm going to top stitch along either side of the zipper. And then I'm going to top stitch along the bottom edge of the sleeves, and I'm going to top stitch along the neckline right here on the red fabric. I used the corresponding thread color to top stitch each edge. So yeah, I did change my threads over and over and over just to make sure that it matched. But it was worth it because I love the way it looks now with the thread matching. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up, leave a comment letting me know what you think of this jacket. Let me know what colors you would have used. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you to everybody who is subscribed. And for those of you who have left requests for me, I am working on them and they are coming soon. So stay tuned and keep watching. Bye!